Welcome back to the North Star Takes podcast with Bailey Policki and Jacob Liberta. If you're new to the channel and you're a Minnesota sports fan, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a like as well. Today we're going to be talking Minnesota Wild, and Kirill Kaprizov is finally on the board. He scored the game-winning goal in overtime last night against the Ottawa Senators, and just really a beautiful play all the way around, from Fiala fighting off the guy trying to take the puck from him, all the way to the pass to Kaprizov, and then obviously him just burying the one-timer. The Wild honestly look really good in these 3-on-3 overtimes, and I think a big part of it is just having fast skill guys like Kaprizov and Fiala. And last night was the dream scenario. You have both of them on the ice. They have a 2-on-1, and they're able to finish the game off. So obviously super encouraging to have Kaprizov finally get his first goal of the season. Fiala looked really good last night too, flying around the ice, getting a couple of assists. So what are your impressions, I guess, from this? And do you think he's about to go on a tear?
Yeah, it's always good to get in the scoring column, goal scoring column, I should say. And I think it's like a bucket getter in basketball, like we've talked about in our previous episodes about the Wild, that really once you see one go in, then it can come in a flurry, hopefully. So I think this could really springboard him into hopefully a hot streak where he starts scoring goals almost every night. And
Yeah.
I think that's a realistic possibility, knowing what we know after his play last season. So this should be a good step in the right direction. And like you said, it's nice to see our two-star players really feeding off each other in a big overtime win. So I think that's great. And I know it's not exactly the best of opponents last night. Like, if we'd have lost that's a pretty bad loss against Ottawa, because Ottawa's not a good team. And for us to blow that lead like we did, to go from 3-1 to having an awful second period and going down 4-3, like, that just can't happen. You're not going to beat good teams like that. You're just thankful that you played a bad one in Ottawa. So I'm really, really hoping that this is just the start of something. Like, you beat a bad team, but still at the end of the day, it's a win. And then you can go into these games against probably more of our division foes, against pretty solid teams, and find ways to win there, just because now hopefully your star players are going. But I think I'm still a little bit concerned as far as defense goes. I know we're talking about Kaprizov right now, but as far as our defense goes, that's still still a little alarming, I would say, just because I got too sloppy last night, and the PK has just been bad. So I think there's still needs to be a lot that needs to be shored up yet.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. The problem now with the defense is obviously Suter's gone. I mean, he wasn't great by any means, but as just a pure defenseman, he was solid. We've had Goligoski, but he's been hurt lately, so not having him in there has been tough. Dumba kind of gets elevated in that role now, and I've just never thought much of him as like a defensive defenseman. So obviously, like, he struggles like turning the puck over, not necessarily being in the right spot. Sometimes guys are left wide open in front of the net, and that's extremely frustrating. And then you have that third D-line pairing of John Merrill, who I have not been impressed by whatsoever. I don't think he's been very good at all. And then Dmitry Kulikov, and he's been okay, I would say. He's probably just more of a straight-up replacement for Carson Soucy. He's nothing better, probably nothing worse. I mean, maybe a little worse, I guess, but he's more solid. But I'm thinking once our defensemen get back to full health here, I'm hoping that Kalen Addison just kind of takes John Merrill's spot, because Merrill's been a complete disaster. And then you throw on top of it that Talbot hasn't exactly been the sharpest. He hasn't been horrible, but he hasn't been super sharp. And Kakkonen's only played one game to this point, and he looked pretty rough. So the goaltending definitely needs to improve along with the defense, I think. But I think what it's going to come down to is this team's just going to have to get carried by the offense, because you have skill players all over the ice with Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, Fiala, Zuccarello once he's back. Marcus Foligno is turning into a goal scorer. Ryan Hartman's turning into a goal scorer. Like, these are guys that we saw flashes from last year, and Foligno the previous year as well. And this year they're tied for the team lead in goals. Granted, it's early, but for them to have 4 goals already is pretty impressive for those players. So then that's not even factoring in that at some point this season we could see Marco Rossi and Matthew Boldy, and Adam Beckman is already up now due to some guys being out of the lineup. Jordan Greenway being one of them, which I'll take the Beckman for Greenway swap. So yeah, I mean, once Beckman gets in more of a groove, I mean, who knows? I mean, I just think the true identity of this team is going to be its offense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's where all the substantial talent lies, I would say, because when you talk about the Wild, you always talk about Kaprizov and Fiala. Albeit we do have two pretty good defensemen in my opinion, and then guys like Spurgeon and Brodin. Not a big Dumba guy right now. And then as
Yeah.
far as the other defensemen, I'm not really crazy about them either. All these guys on these 1 year deals that we picked up for cheap, so not huge on that either. So I think
Yep.
we really will have to lean into the offensive identity of this team. And it's almost like the Vikings in that regard, where it's like for so long we've been regarded as probably a defense first team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the case with the Wild, even as recently as last year. But I would say now we're turning more of an offensive team, and that's how we're going to win every night, is scoring a ton of goals. Since got to
Right.
start with getting our star players going and putting pucks in the net.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, that's last night was a huge game in terms of turning that corner.
Yeah.
And hopefully these guys can keep it up. I mean, I think Kaprizov basically mentioned how big of a monkey it was off his back. It felt like scoring his first goal of his career because it was just so anticipated.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, and then Fiala obviously played a great game. He's going to get rewarded here soon because he's really been playing well lately.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if these guys can get hot, I mean, that's obviously going to change things significantly for this team. They're still 6-3. They played 2 more games in the Blues as of the recording of this video. They're tied at the top of the division with the Blues, but the Blues have 2 games in hand, which it's way too early to care about that stuff. But we're still sitting in a good spot, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So, one last thought before we kind of wrap here. Do you think the Wild should be more willing to give the Kaprizov Fiala pairing more of a look on just like a standard 5-on-5 line?
I think they should, just because the talent is undeniable, and you never know until you try it, like really try it. So I think it could give you better results than you can imagine. So I think it's definitely worth attempting, especially when you're going through a time when you don't feel like you're playing your best hockey as a team anyway. I feel
Yeah.
like it's worth throwing at the wall and seeing if it sticks, just because you never know until you try it. And I think just getting these guys going is really important. And maybe like this overtime goal, maybe they'd feed off each other a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
you get some good results. But at the same time, maybe it doesn't work as well as you'd think, and then you can just go back to shuffling up the lines a little bit more until you find something that really works and the team gets in a groove. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't see the harm in trying it. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I know they tried it a couple games ago, and they really only gave it like the first period, basically,
Yeah.
before they broke them up. And honestly, they both were playing poorly that night, but you have to figure most nights they're not going to play that poorly. And you see the chemistry they have. Like you can tell that the passes they make to each other on the power plays. Obviously, in overtime, that game-winning goal was fantastic. The nice 2-on-1 chemistry they had, like. I think
Mm-hmm.
these guys are both. I mean, they're the 2 most talented players on the team. They both can be facilitators. They both can be snipers. I just think it's perfect, honestly. I think you just give them a little time to play with each other, and I think they're going to be setting each other up. And obviously, there's going to be some fireworks happening if you have your 2 best offensive players on the same line. But I can also see why they want to, distribute the wealth a little bit. And split them up. I mean, it makes sense from that regard too. But you look at a team like the Avalanche; they put all their best players on the first line, and it works pretty well for them. So it's just a different way of handling it, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's worth it to at least give it another shot.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's just a little against the grain of Evanson's style. He's a guy who likes to balance the lines,
Yeah.
but I think even he's got to realize when we go through maybe some slumps like we recently did here. Hopefully, we're getting out of it now with this win against Ottawa. But
Yep.
even then, I think he's got to realize he's got to make or honestly try different combinations so something works to snap out of it. So then
Hmm.
you really keep moving forward as a team instead of staying in place and being stuck in the mud and accruing losses. So I think eventually this season will happen where these guys will get some sustained run playing together. I just don't really know when that'll be yet.
Yeah, and like I said, additions of like a Boldy and a Rossi can make things interesting too. And if Beckman can find a way to stay up here, he's not going to be buried on the 4th or 3rd line or whatever for too long. So yeah, it could be very interesting. But that's going to do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I previously mentioned, if you're new to the channel or if you're a Minnesota sports fan in general, please hit that subscribe button. Give this Minnesota Wild video a like as well so we can reach other Minnesota Wild fans who are excited about the team, excited about Kirill Kaprizov finally getting on the board. Give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram, and leave your comments below about how you're feeling about the Wild through their first 9 games or 6-3. If you have any concerns or other players that are maybe under the radar that are sticking out to you. So we always love hearing feedback from the listeners. So please leave your comments below, and thanks for watching.